شكرا سيدي.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the government of the Arab Syrian Republic, at the outset, would like to express its appreciation for the efforts being exerted by the Department of Peacekeeping Operations at the United Nations, as well as the members of the United Nations Disengagement Observer Force in the occupied Golan Heights. I want you to remember this statement. Officials at the UN Disengagement Observer Force at the occupied Golan Heights. This force is on part of our lands occupied by Israel since 1967. And the reason the UNDAF forces are in the Golan is the Israeli occupation of the Golan. I want this fact to remain present in the minds of our colleagues. Therefore, we express our appreciation for the efforts being exerted by DPKO, as well as those exerted by officials at the UNDAF in the occupied Golan Heights in order to observe the disengagement agreement and in order to maintain peace and security in its area of operations. And this, of course, is in implementation of its mandate. UNDAF has always been and continues to be the safest peacekeeping operation out of all the peacekeeping operations dispatched by the United Nations throughout the world. Syria continued to support and facilitate UNDAF's work and respect its mandate since this force was formed in 1974. Moreover, Syria continued to establish close ties with officials from UNDAF and UNSO, and with the United Nations DPKO throughout over the past 40 years almost, which is the period of the Israeli occupation of the Golan Heights. The regular report of the Secretaries General, ever since this Israeli occupation of the Golan began in 1967, these reports have expressed appreciation for this positive Syrian attitude in cooperating with UNDAF and its elements, as well as safeguarding their safety and respecting their mandate. And in the name of the Syrian Arab Republic, we affirm that we will offer everything that is necessary to maintain the safety of UNDAF's elements in order to ensure the success of its mandate. Syria expresses its regrets that the sought-after just and comprehensive peace in the Middle East, which some colleagues have mentioned, some distinguished colleagues have mentioned, has not been achieved yet. Israel has not withdrawn from the occupied Syrian Heights in implementation of Security Council resolutions 242, 338, and 497, and in implementation of all international initiatives, including the Arab Peace Initiative, and the well-known terms of reference that exist as well. It has also not implemented international law, which has led naturally to the prolonged presence of this force over part of our occupied land. Here, we ask the Security Council to play its role, its real role, in putting an end to the Israeli occupation of our land, which would uphold the mandate that it gave itself by its own resolution, as well as its task to maintain international peace and security. Mr. President, ever since the recent internal events and developments have started taking place in Syria, and especially after some extremists have started using violence and bearing arms against law and order forces and against innocent Syrian citizens, including peaceful demonstrators. It became clear to us and to many observers in the world, it became clear to us that some elements, some sides, including some parties in this very Security Council, their attempts to involve the Security Council using weak excuses and justifications into internal developments that have nothing to do with the Security Council's role or responsibilities or mandate. And without delving into an explanation of what we saw some members of the Security Council attempt to do in terms of forcing the Security Council into issues that are none of its business, we are indeed puzzled by some of these parties' attempts to mention internal developments in Syria into a draft resolution, which some colleagues have described, and we thank them for that, into a resolution which is a technical one that pertains to the extension of UNDOF's mandate. This is a technical draft resolution that the Security Council has dealt with in the past in a technical manner and has done so dozens of times over many years of the Israeli occupation of our Golan. This use of strictly internal developments in Syria only aims to exert and put political pressure on Syria. And this is another indication of how some member states will not hesitate to continue to use the Security Council as a tool to pass their own policies. Syria expresses its deep appreciation to the Security Council's member states who did not get involved in these exposed tactics and suspicious movements. Here we would like to note that the reforms announced by President Bashar al-Assad, which emanate from his belief in the need to perform reforms that would meet the demands and aspirations of the Syrian people, these reforms will be applied on the ground through the National Dialogue Conference, whose consultations will begin over the next few days. Keeping in mind that some of the reforms have now become a tangible reality on the ground and enjoy the support as well as the appreciation of the international community. All of these are issues that we have reported consecutively to the Secretary General as well as members of the Security Council. Mr. President, we have, and since the formation of UNDOF in 1974, we have continued to draw the Security Council's attention as well as the attention of the Secretary General to what Israel, the occupying authority, this is its legal title, the occupying power. These authorities have built settlements on the Golan, so that the number of Israeli settlements in the Golan has now reached 44 settlements. And it continued to build bypass roads around Syrian cities in the Golan. And these authorities continue to dry the Mas'ada Lake, on which thousands of Syrian farmers depend on for their living. These authorities continued to oppress and to oppress the citizens of the Syrian Golan Heights who refuse to carry Israeli identification cards and who reject the Israeli occupation, as well as launch campaigns of arresting campaigns against them. This council in 1981 adopted its renowned resolution unanimously number 497, which condemned and rejected Israel's decision, Israeli occupying power's decision to annex the occupied Golan Heights. All of these issues, Mr. President, it appears, did not reach the ears of some of the people who spoke today, some of the delegates who spoke today, and they never even mentioned them in their statements on UN resolutions and the renewal of UNDOF's mandate for over 40 years past. This suffering of our people in the occupied Golan Heights should have deserved some mention a long time ago, instead of simply focusing on the strictly internal affairs of a member state and one of the founding members of this organization. Mr. President, the United States military wars, according to a report issued in Washington yesterday, have cost $4 trillion. These wars have led to disasters in Iraq and in Afghanistan and other areas of the world. And we now also hear about the scandal of NATO not applying the strict mandate of 1973, and this scandal is in front of all of us to see. These are the facts that pertain to the mandate of the Security Council, not some internal and domestic incidents that could take place inside any member state of this organization. My country, Mr. President, has received 2 million Iraqi refugees who fled Iraq because of the American and British-led military invasion of Iraq. But we didn't put our brothers in camps and ask them to live in tents. We received them as they awaited the continued liberation of Iraq so they can return to their homes and their homeland. Nobody in this international community, and ever since we received these 2 million Iraqi refugees, nobody has taken the stand to even offer us some humanitarian aid that would assist us in bearing the burden of this burden that has been caused by the US and British occupation and invasion of Iraq. And because of the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories, we host 500,000 Palestinian refugees and 500,000 Syrian refugees who have come from the Golan. None of those who spoke today and who expressed their concern over the internal incidents in Syria, no one, not one of them, has offered us anything, any form of humanitarian support to help us face these dangerous challenges which we did not cause. Moreover, we saw none of Hollywood stars visit those millions of refugees who have fled to our country. Yes, Syria's stability is important. It's very important for the Middle East region, as one of our colleagues has pointed out. However, messing with this stability is extremely dangerous for the region and for international security and stability, and especially when this meddling is done by countries that have and bear animosity towards us based on principle and for political reasons. These states are the same states that have caused us the disasters of the Sykes-Picot Agreement in 1916 and the Balfour Declaration in 1917 and the division of the region. These are important considerations to those who have a weak memory, so that we could have a clearer picture of what is happening in the world. But for us to speak of concern for the pluralistic Syrian society and community, as the distinguished representative of Germany said, this is not in line at all with what Germany does in terms of providing Israel with 6 submarines that can be equipped with nuclear heads over the past few years. And I will not engage in further details, because this would cause me to speak of the same members who have also spoken and who have also furnished Israel with nuclear technology and helped it build nuclear reactors. And they also protect Israel's refusal to join the NPT, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and place its nuclear installations under international supervision. Mr. President, this is only part of what I'd like to discuss. However, I want to thank you for giving me the floor. And I hope that this esteemed council would focus on the real issues that are within its mandate, instead of encroaching upon the sovereignty of a member state of the United Nations and meddling with its internal affairs. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic